Now we're
Okay.
good. Apologize. Thank you.
We take the.
Yeah, we're trained. Recording
Okay.
in progress and our mouths open.
Okay, consent agenda. Are we good?
I move you pass the consent agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as submitted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. I didn't take roll.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we need to do roll?
No, we
call?
do. It's
Megan.
It's not,
Got
okay,
it.
sorry. Oh, roll calls up here. I apologize, y'all. Okay, I have my list. Commissioner St. Clair,
Here.
James P. Mara.
Present.
See, that's why I did it for
Thank
you. Commissioner Bacon,
Here.
Councilperson Seer,
Councilmember Seer is here.
Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1576 President Danny Julie. Commissioner Johnson. All right. And now, I know that you all are comfortable and cozy. We are going to go into a closed session for,
Elected one.
Yeah, no, but how long?
for how long?
Oh, 30 minutes.
For 30 minutes.
We can always extend, if you want. It's under 15. 15 and extend.
Okay, we're gonna go into a closed session for 15 minutes. Those of you that are online, Meg will place you in the waiting room and you will rejoin the meeting when we resume. For those of you that are in the room, I invite you to get cozy outside this room until we're back from close session.
And.
Where's Karen?
He's right there. I couldn't see you behind Janet. Karen's is invited.
Matt,
Okay.
Matt, this is a closed session, right? There's no real guaranteed
Just,
Yeah.
Time.
But I, just as a courtesy, I like to.
Okay. I just want to make sure it goes on record. Thank you.
It's
Meg,
not an
is the
executive.
recording on? I was saying in my head. Right. We are back from closed session. No action was taken. We will move to business item number 1. Approval of the labor agreement between Island Transit and the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1576, effective October 10, 2025 to October 9, 2028. And I will hand it over to Executive Director X.
Thank you. I would like to say a few words before this is opened up to the board. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board, ATU members, and our ATU president and vice president. We began a journey of repairing the relationship between Island Transit Management, ATU leaders, and ATU members nearly 1 year ago. We have come such a long way. Today, we enjoy a strong partnership in a we environment. We continue to improve our culture on a daily basis, and I would like to commend everyone on their efforts to rebuild our relationship. We began our negotiation process in July of this year and come before the board and ATU membership to vote on the proposed contract. We have had very productive discussions over the last 4 months. Today's contract proposal provides a one-time wage adjustment and a reasonable COLA increase in years 2 and 3 of the contract. I mention this because the impact is substantial to the agency, the board, as well as our ATU members. This increase is to bring us closer to similar agencies in the region. It is not a common figure that is normally offered during the negotiation process. I say this to show respect to my board of directors and to acknowledge the membership of ATU who work diligently to serve our community. This proposed contract sets a level playing field. Future negotiations will likely not look like today's proposed contract, but we will move forward together in a more collaborative way and in solid partnership. My thanks to all of you.
With that, any questions on business item 1?
I move to ratify the labor agreement between Island Transit and Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1576 effective October 10th, 2025 through October 9th, 2028, which is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated into this resolution by this reference superseding resolution number 7-2 and authorizing future regulatory and administrative changes.
I strongly second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Just a question, we had a change of date, did that get included in the motion? Wasn't this business item number one where in our agenda?
The agenda was wrong.
The agenda was
Wrong,
wrong,
document is
the
correct.
document is right, okay, I just want to make sure we had the right thing before us, thank you.
Melanie, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the labor agreement between Island Transit and the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 1576, effective October 10, 2025 to October 9, 2028. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, aye. We have 5 ayes and 1 nay. The motion passes.
Jenny, would you please confirm the nay? I could not hear very well.
You wanna say the term out loud for the public or not? You just wanna approve it, but not say what it's in it? I feel like if we approved it, we should say what's in it.
So effectively, the wage increase for this contract is a 17% plus 3, effectively 20% in first year of the contract and 3% COLA increases in years 2 and 3.
May I speak? So I would like to commend this board for their courage. Prior to, hiring Melinda, you guys have a decision to make for the health of this agency and for the community. You stepped forward decisively, took action, and set this agency on a solid path forward into the future for the betterment of your employees and this entire community. When you create a scenario where the accountability and the trust is rebuilt, that sets a strong foundation for everything that happens going forward. Your decision to hire Melinda Adams as the executive director, I believe, was the best choice that you made throughout this process. Her tough, no nonsense approach to running the organization and her commitment to making this agency more effective and a place where people want to come to work has completely changed the entire morale of your employees, the trajectory of where this agency is going, and the service that you can now be assured that you're going to be able to provide this community going forward. So for your courage and wisdom, I commend you. I would also like to commend you for making this decision to invest in your employees. The practical effect of your decision today means that some of your hardworking full-time employees will no longer have to rely on the food bank to feed their families. It means that some of them will no longer live paycheck to paycheck. They'll be able to establish a savings. And with that, that strengthens the entire community that they serve as dedicated public servants. So on behalf of ATU and our membership, we are committed to, as Melinda said, not all contract negotiations are going to look like this, but making it right, making that one-time wage adjustment investing in employees and making that statement to both the workforce and the community is really, thank you very much.
I just, as a matter of, record, I wanted to praise Melinda for the work that she's done, and she showed due diligence as well as a steely nerves to do the, negotiation. And I wanted to mention that, the affordability, was carefully analyzed, and I demanded to know that. And also that this is a one-time adjustment. So, just to manage expectations coming 3 years from now, it's a whole different scenario, because in practical terms, we're dealing with operators who have CDLs and dealing with transporting humans, big buses in dangerous circumstances, and when compared with long haul drivers, I'm stating that, these are fair terms, and I fully support them. And then also with regard to the labor market, there's the general labor market across the country, but then by different sectors and different vocations or whatever you can call it, there's also micro labor markets. And I would state that the labor market for operators is distinctly different than, say, some other types of jobs. And I think that this negotiation and this labor agreement meets the requirements for our local labor market with regard to operators. That's.
Yeah, this was an emotional vote for me. Most votes at Island Transit are not emotional votes. I understand the impact of this vote because of the special perspective I had for a while as acting executive director. So I want to commend, labor representative and board member, Danny Jeline, and our executive director. I think we have an agreement that's going to move this agency into the future so that we are not challenged in hiring new operators, and we can reward our current operators. And I think it's a huge step forward in stabilizing the agency. I am so grateful that this happens, and I just had to make that statement.
Anyone else? Okay.
Um,
Oh, sorry, sorry, Commissioner Mayhew.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to say that I was uncomfortable with the size of this increase, even though I knew and had known for a long time, as we all did, that the members of this union were underpaid. It's been clear to us for a long time. We knew we had to address it. We've all been looking forward to being able to pass a contract so that they could have the increase they so rightfully deserved. This did feel like excessive, but I was very reassured by the comparables that you used. And we are right there in the middle of the comparables, which is how this should be done. That's how it's done in all of our negotiating at the county. You have some of your comparables above you, some are below you. You try to find that place right in the middle. And so I feel comfortable with where we landed on this, and I appreciate the other things that management was able to get out of this contract that will help us to be a more efficient organization. So I'm in support of the contract.
Okay. We will move on to a presentation by the Washington State Auditor's Exit Conference Report on 2024 Annual Audit. I will pass it over to our director.
Yes, I wanted to introduce our state auditor's office today and just take a few moments to talk about the 2024 audit. I would like to welcome Coleman and Scott, and my apologies, we have one other individual that I would welcome, and the screen's too small for me to see your name. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Dina Garza. Thank you, Melinda.
Dina, thank you. Yes. They are going to be presenting the results of the 2024 single audit today. And while the presentation will reflect findings from 2024, the findings are not a surprise. Early in 2025, I hired Clark Newber to do an independent assessment of our financial systems and processes to include our maintenance parts department. Prior to SAO commencing their audit, the agency took corrective action immediately to address concerns. We have corrective actions in place and provided all of the information that you'll hear about today to our state auditors to ensure transparency regarding the state of the agency. In addition, we continue to work with Clark Newber to develop policies, procedures, and desk manuals. These updated policies and procedures will be presented to the board during the first quarter of 2026. Departments have been restructured, processes streamlined, and positions added to centralize and provide quality control and segregation of duties to ensure compliance. At the end of the presentation and questions, our financial controller, Paul Aaron, will address items noted in the management letter. I'll now turn it over to our state auditor's office for their presentation. Thank you all for being here.
Perfect. And thank you all for the
thank you.
time, especially in your regular meeting and with so many other notable things that you're discussing today. I appreciate the dedication to the audit process by letting us present here. So Coleman will share his screen in a PowerPoint presentation that we would like to walk through. We've also provided our exit conference packet to you, so it should be in your board information. As Melinda referenced, this is our exit conference. My name is Dina Garza, and I have the pleasure of being the audit manager for the team that performs the audit each year. With me today, also presenting Scott Hilton as the audit supervisor, and as you mentioned, Coleman Brummel as the audit lead. Before I hand it over to them to talk through the audit, I do want to go to the second slide and just talk about the state auditor's office for a moment and why we see so much value in presenting and appreciate again so much being able to present to the full board, is that we are talking about the audit process and the results, and that we recognize that those have an impact. Our goal as an office is to increase the public's trust in government. In our interactions with all of Washington state and local governments, we see a lot of good in government, and we really take seriously our ability, our role to tell that story. So there's a couple goals on the screen that we always like to talk about, really stating our intention before we go into our presentation. Is that first, we are an independent state audit or office, that we want to make sure that we are respecting management's decisions and operation policies as we go through. We want to make sure that we're very transparent in our examinations. And so that happens not only as we work with your staff on the day-to-day in meetings like this, but as we walk away as well. Our reports are published on our website. We process through citizen hotlines and concerns that come out. We work with media and local social service groups, just trying to make sure that we are as open and transparent about our process and providing answers to your questions as you for each of the different roles that you represent and all of the staff that you represent. Because of the third goal is really big to us, is that the communication and collaboration to really support you and all of your staff is important to us, an important part of our process. We are looking for an improved efficiency and effectiveness of government. And like I said, seeing so much good in government, sometimes that's just sharing the information that we're aware of, letting you know about other transits around the state or other local governments and other industries, sharing resources that our office has put quite a bit of resources towards. So whether that's checklists or free trainings, sometimes it's the information. And so I really hope that all of those things show up in our interactions, in our tone, that we are in support of you and just a reporting agency wanting to share. So as Melinda said, we do have a few things that we're talking to today just to make sure that we are open in our information. And I'm glad to hear that there's already a planned discussion for this presentation afterward. So very much in support of that. So to move forward with the content, I will have Coleman go ahead and walk through the different types of audits that we performed and the results of each. Coleman.
Awesome. Thank you, Dina. Perfect. So we conducted an accountability audit for the period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. And the purpose of an accountability audit is to ascertain whether the transit complied with state laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and its own policies and procedures. In addition, these audits also look at whether, in general, the transit has adequate controls to safeguard public funds. During our audit, we identified that the transit's operations complied in all material respects with applicable state laws, regulations, and its own policies, and provided adequate controls over the safeguarding of public resources. However, we noted certain matters related to safeguarding of assets addressed in a finding dated November 7th, 2025. We will talk more about the finding on the upcoming slides. In keeping with general auditing practices, we do not examine every transaction, activity, policy, internal control, or area. As a result, no information is provided on the areas that were not examined. Going into a little bit more detail on our accountability audit, we used a risk-based audit approach to identify and select our areas to further investigate for our audit. This approach includes reviewing trends, reading the meeting minutes, and staff interviews and other planning procedures. Based on the risks identified, we selected the following areas to review. So the first area we reviewed was the transit's tracking and monitoring of theft-sensitive assets. As I mentioned on our last slide, we noted certain matters relating to the safeguarding of assets that we addressed in a finding. We will talk more about this finding on the next slide. The next area we examined was procurement, where we specifically focused on the purchases during the period. Third, we reviewed the transit's compliance with Open Public Meetings Act requirements by reviewing the meeting minutes. Fourth, we reviewed the transit's financial condition by reviewing ratios, financial trends, and other indicators of financial distress. And finally, we reviewed the transit's annual report submission to ensure compliance with state law and reporting requirements. As I mentioned on the last slide, we will be issuing an audit finding related to the safeguarding of assets. During our audit, we identified that the transit lacked the proper oversight and internal controls to ensure inventory assets were appropriately safeguarded. On pages 9 through 12 of our exit packet, you can read in depth about the finding and our recommendations. Briefly, our audit found that the transit segregation of duties, purchasing procedures, inventory tracking and adjustment procedures, and physical inventory count frequency were not adequate to ensure inventory assets were properly safeguarded. As I mentioned, this is a very high-level summary of our audit finding. If you would like specifics, please see pages 9 through 12 of the exit packet provided. I would also like to point out that Transit has taken steps during our audit to address these concerns and mitigate the risks observed. You can see the Transit's response to the finding on pages 11 and 12 of the packet. At this time, I would like to ask if there is anything that management would like to add regarding the finding.
Yes, actually, I do have a few notes. So for this is pertaining to our parks department. Back when Clark Newberg did their assessment, we discovered all of these deficiencies. We immediately, upon the final report, removed the familial relationship between parks and finance. I restructured both areas. A third person has now been introduced in parks who does the receiving in order to segregate ordering and receiving parts. Additional software was purchased to integrate the RTA parts inventory system with our NetSuite, which is our financial system, which allows only one-way communication. So in other words, parts cannot change an invoice once processed through the system, and I'm not indicating that they did. This is just one more measure to put in place for protection. This process confirms the segregation of duties. The parts project we instituted in August of 2025. And this is a huge undertaking. It's taking 20 years of inventory and going through labeling, inventorying, and establishing credit for all of the parts currently on the floor and in the mezzanine level. This is not a small undertaking. This project started in August and is anticipated or is required to conclude by December 31st of 2025. In addition to that, I have instituted a semi-annual inventory process that will be introduced. We were on an annual, but we want to take the next several years to ensure this project is moving along and that our inventory is on target. So we will be doing a semi-annual inventory in January and July of each year. using employees independent of maintenance to ensure the integrity of the process. Behind the scenes, we have Clark Newber working with staff to develop the policies and procedures around this. Right now, we have a draft plan of that semi-annual inventory process. It's about a 4-pager. And we know that as we go through and do the active inventory process, that will have some things to move around a bit. We also will have our new accountant, who I'll be introducing to you later, that will be certifying that inventory every 6 months as an insider. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Melinda. Any other questions before I move on with the presentation to our next audit that we conducted?
Right.
So yeah, just have a question about that. This inventory that we're doing presumably will reveal a lot of legacy parts that we no longer need. Is that right?
That's part of the, actually not the inventory, but the parts project, where they are removing parts that for buses we no longer have.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, those are being moved to one side. We have, maintenance has contacted Napa. So we have many, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have many places where we purchase parts that aren't even in business anymore, and they were actually able to work with Napa to issue credit on a good portion of those. So we're recapturing costs.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other questions before I move on? Awesome. All right, so we also conducted, oh, is there another question or no? Okay, perfect, sorry. We also conducted a financial statement audit for the period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. And the objective of a financial statement audit is to issue an opinion as to whether the information included in the financial statements can be relied upon to make decisions. We are pleased to report that we are issuing an unmodified, clean audit opinion on the Transit's financial statements. This is the opinion you want to receive, and it provides assurance the financial statements are stated fairly and are materially correct. Additionally, it is important to note that our audits are conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. Those standards also require that we gain an understanding of the Transit's internal controls or process that it goes through to prepare the financial statements for audit. Should we identify a weakness or concern with that process that could or did result in significant errors to the financial statements, we would be required to bring that to your attention and include that information in our audit report. While we identified no concerns in the Transit's process that needed to be included in our report, we are issuing a management letter and recommendations associated with the Transit's financial statement preparation process. We will discuss the management letter more in depth in the upcoming slides. Lastly, audit standards also require us to consider compliance with applicable laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, where non-compliance could affect the fair presentation of the financial statements. You'll see that your report indicates no non-compliance. In relation to our financial statement audit, professional auditing standards also require that we share with you whether there were any material or large misstatements that were identified and subsequently corrected by management. We are pleased to report that there were no material misstatements identified during the course of our audit. We are also required to note whether there were any uncorrected misstatements that remain uncorrected in the audited financial statements. We have included in your packet a full listing of these items, but please note that we have concluded these items are deemed immaterial or small in nature and do not affect the overall opinion being issued on the Transit's financial statements. Additionally, these items have been shared with Transit management, and management stated that they will work on correcting these items when preparing future financial statements. For some more specifics, as a part of our financial statement audit, we evaluated other risks that we would like to bring to your attention. First, auditing standards require auditors to evaluate the possibility that management may be able to circumvent certain controls. We are pleased to share with you that our evaluation showed no instances or possibilities where controls were circumvented. Our audit also evaluated the implementation of new accounting standards, such as GASB 101, compensated absences. This new accounting standard changes the way compensated absences are calculated and reported on the financial statements. While the Transit did implement GASB 101, we did note deviations from the standard that we will speak more about on the next slide and detail in our management letter. On to the management letter. So as I noted a few slides ago, we are issuing a management letter over financial statement preparation. Please note that management letters are not included in the audit report, but are referenced in the report. While this is still a public document, this item will not be published on our website. In addition, we have included a copy of the cover page, followed by the first page of the management letter on the slide today. For your reference, you will find a full version of this letter included in your exit packet on pages 39 and 40. You will see that the topic of our management letter is financial statement preparation. As we have previously shared, the transit received a clean, unmodified opinion on its financial statements. This means that overall, the transit's financial statements are fairly stated and materially correct. However, we also discussed that we are required to bring to your attention any instances where we would be aware of weaknesses within the transit's internal controls or process it goes through to prepare its financial statements. In this case, our audit found that the transit's internal controls over financial statement preparation could be improved. Please note that none of the errors are individually or in aggregate material to the financial statements and would not inhibit reader comprehension. However, due to the volume of errors identified, we determined it was appropriate to elevate our recommendation to a management letter. For some specifics, during our audit, our review of the transit's financial statements, we identified that the transit prepared the statement of cash flows on the accrual basis of accounting instead of the required cash basis. Additionally, we also identified that the transit did not properly implement new accounting standards, such as GASB 101, and did not implement GASB 100 in conjunction with GASB 101 as required. The transit also did not include all the required information in the financial statements, and the financial statements contained information not applicable to the transit. We also noted other presentation errors throughout the statements. Based on the issues identified, we recommend the transit strengthen its internal controls over its preparation and review of the financial statements to ensure the statements it submits for audit are complete and accurate. We also recommend that the transit ensure it prepares the statements using the correct basis of accounting and establishes procedures to adequately research, evaluate, and implement new accounting standards. We communicated these errors and recommendations with Paul and Melinda, and Paul corrected several of the items on the financial statements aside from the statement of cash flows, which he stated he will work on correcting going forward. Again, if you would like a more in-depth explanation regarding our recommendations, please see pages 39 and 40 of our exit packet. I will now pause for any questions on our financial statement audit.
I don't see any.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you for letting me present. I will now pass the presentation over to Scott to go over our federal single audit results.
Thanks, Coleman. And just I'm looking at the time too, and just want to continue to be respectful of your time. We'll answer any questions that you do have, but I'll go through this last portion of the audit in just a high level, and stop me after that if there's any questions. But I'm just going to be presenting on the federal grant compliance audit, and this is what we commonly call the single audit, and it is conducted any year in which the transit expends or spends more than $750,000 of federal funding. That is actually changing going forward to over $1 million for fiscal years 25 and going forward. But the transit spent quite a bit in excess of that in 2024. So this is the year that we are looking at. I just want to direct you to the information on the slide that we do have an opinion that we issued that the transit was in compliance with all the compliance requirements for the major program, and that we were conducting this in accordance with government auditing standards. This is what we'd call a clean opinion on the federal single audit. However, we also issue additional parts of this report where we report on internal controls over the compliance with the major programs. And in that, we didn't report any significant deficiencies, but we did identify what we term material weaknesses, or what audit standards term material weaknesses, and non-compliance that related to those material weaknesses. And with that, we report a finding as well, and we're required by audit standards when we identify those things to report a finding. And I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. On the next slide, I did just want to summarize the program that we audited is the major federal program is the formula grants for this is the technical name, being the formula grants for rural areas and tribal transit program, which represents about 95% of the federal funds spent. And so this is the primary program. I will note it's a fairly unique program where a lot of it is reimbursement for a portion of just the common everyday operating expenses of the transit. And so that actually is part of what we have the finding related to, is that it does complicate things a little bit when you're getting reimbursement for all of your expenses. So then on the next slide, I do have the finding here, and just the caption at the top of it is that the transit did not have adequate internal controls and did not comply with federal procurement, suspension, and debarment requirements. Now, the procurement and then the suspension and debarment requirements are separate, but they're related. And I will just note that the primary reason for the non-compliance in this area is because the federal requirements make it so that anything that is deemed to be a like kind item, and so those are similar types of items that are purchased, if they exceed the federal thresholds for either bidding or quoting, the higher requirements needed for procuring those, then that triggers those requirements to come into play. Like kind items, take it as something like if you buy tires throughout the year, whether it's one tire purchase or 30 tire purchases, if it exceeds $10,000, it requires additional procedures for procurement. Likewise, if it exceeds $25,000, it requires suspension and debarment compliance. And so suspension and debarment is where the federal government prohibits any federal expenditures on suspended or debarred vendors. And so that is just why additional checks need to be done at that point. I will note that the like kind items requirement is not the only part of non-compliance that we identified. There were some other less significant non-compliance with the standard controls that the transit has over procurement and suspension and debarment, but this did compose the bulk of what the non-compliance was identified. So I am also aware that the transit has hired somebody to kind of handle the procurement more in depth and more specifically, and someone with additional experience. And with all of these findings, the transit does have a ability to respond and has responded formally to the findings, and those responses are published with our findings. So there we'll see some of the different things that the transit has done. So we're just happy to see that and thank the transit for working with us on these. All right, so that is the federal compliance audit. Are there any questions related to that? Otherwise, I'll go into the closing remarks. Yeah, Commissioner.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, this procurement suspension debarment finding for the federal, is this also associated with the familial relationship that we had in between finance and parks, or is it something different?
It is different. Yeah, these are so procurement would be typically there were a large portion of the items that when you purchase from any vendor, that I don't even know if there were any parts purchases as part of the finding. I think there were tires that were part of it, but it's not related to the familiar relationship.
Is it anything of concern that's going to impact our ability to receive these grants?
We would not have additional concerns, but that's up to the federal government to actually to respond in that way. Traditionally, we haven't seen penalties like that waged from the federal government, but yeah, in relation to findings.
Scott, may I speak to this, please?
Yes.
Yeah, so Commissioner Bacon, as you know, we hired a procurement manager last year. Suspension and debarment under procurement happens to be something I have a lot of background in from my previous career. So therefore, anytime we're working with contractors, and we are paying out $25,000 or more, it requires the procurement department to do a search to ensure that the person or the contractor has been registered on sam.gov. This is an annual membership that they must do. So in our NetSuite system, which is our financial system, number one, we have centralized procurement now. So Nate, who's our procurement manager, does all of those searches. And then the executive director, myself, has to approve any of the purchases $10,000 and over. Because I know what to look for in the sam.gov website, I'm actually going to the length of, if we have a contractor who is within 1 month of expiration, they must prove to me and submit a letter of their resubmission, because there's that lapse in time. They could definitely be debarred and we would not know that. So we don't pay out any invoices until they have re-upped that membership. So we watch this very closely, and now we have the I want to say fail-proof levels in place to assure that doesn't happen. Clark Newber had noted that we had failed 13 of 20 of the selected procurements that we that they sampled. Now, none of those were monetary in any way, but that's part of the reason we've shored up all of those areas. So this was known to us prior to this particular audit.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have this may be a naive question, and probably more for staff, but my question is, what I heard said is that as the values are accumulated to exceed I think he said 25,000 that requires us to check. In our workflow, when you're doing accumulated maintenance, the first maintenance purchase may have been 4,000, the second may have been 7. How do you know in advance if you're doing M&O, whether you're going to exceed that threshold or not? And if we don't know, are we taking the conservative stance of doing these checks on all of our vendors?
That's an excellent question. And I think that is the process that we need to go through. What I have Nate looking at is some of these things came up even like with our marketing supplies, right? When we would purchase one off for an event, but then over the year, you have these accumulations. So Nate is looking into things like cooperative contracts. Anything I'm leaving out, Nate?
Yeah, cooperative purchasing agreements. There's a number of public agencies out there who are cooperative, so we can increase our buying power at the same time as saving. With that, partnering with other transit agencies who are buying the same things.
Well, if we have a budget that says it's gonna be this amount annually, then if the budget
Easy
says
to
we're gonna
flat.
exceed that amount in any of our, whether it's stickers that she wants to give away out of summer fairs, sorry. Whatever it is, we could proactively, if the budget exceeds that, rather than the purchase exceeds that, we could proactively put in place those.
Correct. And Nate, I know you're working closely with Clark Newber on that portion of the
Oh, absolutely.
procedures.
Great
Okay,
things coming down the pipe.
okay.
I did have a question about cash and accrual that I forgot to ask that I asked you. That's really for them.
And it might be Paul.
Paul, might be you. So I did not understand the cash accrual finding, because I thought, once you decide if you're gonna do reporting on a cash basis, as long as you do everything on the cash basis, it's okay. If you're gonna do accrual, but you have to pick one or the other. And this is old knowledge from my old career 100 years ago. And yet we had a finding. So I need to understand, was the finding because we went back and forth, or was the finding because we're not allowed to choose cash or accrual? Because there's a reason to choose cash and there's a reason to choose accrual. It gives you better long-term perspective. So I didn't understand that finding.
Go ahead. I want to clarify just that it actually wasn't a finding, but it's a
material.
concern in the levy.
Right. Thank you for clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
thank you. That's a really good question. And actually, so that So the transit reports on a GAAP basis, so the full accrual basis for their financial statements. Part of the required filings for that is a statement of cash flows. Now, the statement of cash flows is actually presented on a cash basis because it is reporting the cash flows. And then there's, yeah, and so with that, there were several items in the statement of cash flows that were reported that matched the accrual basis, and then separate adjustments were reported in there to show the difference. And so it was just the method of preparing all of that information. We aren't saying that the information was misleading, because a lot of the information was there to make those determinations. It's just not presented in the same manner that all governments are supposed to report when they choose the GAAP basis for full accrual for their financial statement package. So if that, I know that's maybe not even a lot clearer, but that one statement within, so there's a statement of net position. There is which is like the assets and liabilities of the transit. There is a statement of revenues, expenditures, say expenses and changes in fund net position, which is like an income statement showing the revenues and expenses. And then there's a separate statement of cash flows that shows specifically the cash and the changes in those. So that's the part we're talking about, is that statement of cash flows.
That's the but we're still reporting on an accrual basis, correct? And
Correct. Yes.
the reason to do that is a reason I agree with. And so what you're saying is a subset of that accrual reporting is the cash flow. You had not findings, but an issue with some of the cash flow reports. Put it in
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. That is clear. Was there new we are constantly in all of the organizations that we participate in trying to play catch up with the SAO as you, no offense, continue to increase the 101, we're now up to 102, I think is what's coming out. It's hard to catch up. Were any of those just because we were using dated practices?
No. I will I respect also that the transit and local governments are a little farther down the tail of the dog that gets whipped around by new accounting standards. We're a little farther up where we are also subject to national accounting standards, and we we audit in accordance with those. And so no, this doesn't represent as far as I've only been doing this about 13 years, but as far as I know, that wasn't at any point the method for preparing that statement.
Thank you for helping me understand. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have for the audits. And if there's no other questions, I will close up here. And just, I do want to communicate, first of all, that we give an engagement letter at the beginning of the audit. We did have a one-time increase due to some of these higher level recommendations for each of the accountability, financial, and single audits. They require additional work and review, and also additional preparations and communications. So we don't expect that in the next audit. And so we prepared an estimate for our next audit that is over a similar scope as this one for accountability, financial, and federal. And we've included the estimate in the packet. That estimate does reflect our rates for next year as well. So that's just used to be used as a budgeting tool. As we close up here, I do just want to know that we are presenting to you the draft reports, and then those will be published on our website very, very shortly. And with that, we always encourage people to sign up for getting audit reports, where I think it's really informative, where all of you have other positions that you fill, that you could customize those to even include transits around the state, so you can see what's on the horizon and what's happening in audits around the state. With this, there's also an audit survey that comes out. It'll be sent to Paul, but he can also forward it on to others. We really encourage any feedback from anyone, and multiple people can respond to that. So we take those really seriously. And with that, that's the final bit of information. If there are any more questions, we will stay as long as you want.
questions? Anyone online with questions? I think we're good. Dina and team, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you all for your time.
all right.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. We'll drop off now and we appreciate the time. Thank you.
Board members, the packet that they referenced during the presentation was emailed, so it's not.
So I have a point of order. We have a lot to do
We do.
here. Do we need to rearrange any of this agenda for absolutely key items that have to get in front of us?
I think we have enough to cover it by noon because we extended our meeting.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is public input and comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to speak to the board about subjects of concern or interest. Or items not already set aside for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comment may be ended or modified if the comments become disruptive or are not germane to business at hand. Input requiring lengthier comment is best submitted in writing. Any public comments? In the room? Online? Hearing none, we will move on to I don't see any hands. Or anybody unmuting. Okay, we will move on to business item number 2, main base facilities, HVAC upgrade change order. And Pete, is that you? I don't know your last name. I looked at this on the agenda. I was like, who is that? It's me.
Yeah, Jeff joining you as well. Jeff?
No.
You? Oh, okay.
I'm Pete Strong, facilities manager. And, we're going for authorization for change order for the HVAC projects. Included in your board package is the background information regarding the authorization for a change order for the HVAC system. Starting with the bottom line, this change order reflects a net increase of $23,658. The original HVAC project cost is being reduced by $37,000 because we cannot add the heating units, fuel service area that were in the original plan. The letter from Blythe Mechanical, who was awarded the project, details the code information that does not allow for the installation, which is in your board packet. Then you will see that Washington state tax of 8.8% was added to the new subtotal. Sales tax had not been included in the original bid, and it should have been. With the additional sales tax and reduction in costs, we have net increase in this project of $23,658.40. We are provide authorization for Island Transit to proceed with the change order, the amount of $23,000, adjust the total project cost, net total to $7,749,958.40.
Questions?
When was the initial approval given by the board? Do you know?
No, not off the top of my head.
You don't?
Well, it was approved in the 2025 budget, right?
Yeah, budget figures.
Okay. So the original estimates would have come through sometime in 2024.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Maybe I didn't understand what you just explained. We asked for things in the bid and then they weren't included in the bid submittal and then that have the price lower than what it actually costs.
Once the engineering, they did the engineering and they were not allowed to install the heating unit, the fuel service bay area. So they took that out.
It was a safety issue.
So the original bid included heaters, but did not include sales tax.
But that's part of the bidding process, correct? I mean, whose omission was it to not ask for the sales tax to be included? Did we not ask for that or did they not do that?
Yeah, actually, I can click, so, good question, it wasn't on the bid sheet, and their bid number actually had a citation that it was exclusive of sales tax. But when it got into the contract, it was that part didn't get added to the contract. So the bidder didn't make, the bidder sheet put the number down, but they said, they explicitly said this bid is exclusive of sales tax. And that bid number got moved into the contract number, so sales tax was not, I guess.
So Matt, you're saying that the lawyers didn't get the right information in the contract.
I got a third hand, so I never even saw the.
You know, I'm just giving you a hard time, I'm sorry.
No, in fact, I was looking at it, cause I was kinda asking the same question, but then I saw what the bidder actually did, and they didn't do anything wrong.
It was
Not to
the
get too
contract.
deep into the weeds, our bid sheet should have had a line item for tax, and it didn't.
Spoiler alert, we have one other project coming next month that will have the same issue.
And then would this omission of the sales tax and then this install thing have changed the outcome of who the winning bid would have
It
been?
was only.
Well, then that would be an easy answer. One bid. Okay.
You're asking the same questions I did.
Okay, well, I don't even need to show up. I'm sleeping in next month.
Any other questions?
I move to authorize Island Transit to proceed with change order in the amount of $23,658.40, adjusting the total project cost to not to exceed $749,958.40.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve authorization to proceed, oh, wait, yes, I see, change order in the amount of $23,658.40. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
I'm assuming we've updated the bidder form.
Yes.
I was gonna- Okay, business item number 3, authorization to enter into a firm fixed price contract not to exceed 1.1 million with Dahl Electric and PSE for the transformer upgrade construction project, and that is being presented by Keith Schrum.
We were going with authorization to enter into contract not to exceed $1,100,000 with Dell Electric USI for Bluefield main-based electrical systems. The upgrade is needed because we cannot do any future expansions. We expand the parking lot for lights, added buildings that are due to the size of the current transformer. We are looking to go from a 300 kVA kilovolt inverters to a 2000 kVA. I also have Jeff Lehman online from KQFF to help answer any questions you may have on this.
I just have put the beats together for me, Pete, question. We are moving to add solar panels and other things to increase our energy capacity on our main base, correct?
We have solar panels now.
Right. So we've been doing these things to increase the amount of electricity we can generate. How does that play into this transformer decision? I don't have all the beads put together in my own brain of our solar panel, the increase, when we have on both sides of the islands, both islands. The solar panels, this increase, changing, this might have been a Michael question, changing bus design. How does that all, just put the story together for me, how it all fits together, and that we will have sufficient capacity to address, even though we haven't finished the smart plan, to address our future need. I just need you to talk it all out so that future board members aren't sitting here 2 years from now looking at another improvement. I'm sorry, it's a kind of a naive question, but just put it all together for me.
Jeff, can you help out with this, please?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. And it's a good question. I think so. Just kind of overviewing a little bit. So the current transformer, the 300 kVA, is tapped out. Basically, said differently, you can't add any more substantial load to the base without, bumping up against that limit. So this new transformer will expand that limit. So in direct answer to the question, so the PV, the photovoltaic or solar panels on the roofs currently, that helps to offset some of the electrical load. So said differently, if you can't rely on that PV to power your base, then it's not available to you. So you have to at least have the electrical load available in your transformer to feed the base to have ongoing operations. The photovoltaic solar is a nice to have that does offset some of your load. But some of the efficiencies of the solar panels will degrade through time if they're covered with dirt, dust, things like that. So said differently, you can't rely solely on that solar to constantly offset. So it will at times offset some of the load of the base, but you still have to have that capacity available in your transformer should the solar not be able to deliver that power. So it's a little bit of a set aside that the PV solar helps out, but you can't rely on that solely for your electrical load. You have to have the capacity within your transformer.
Solar offsets help reduce our costs.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so with the move from a 300 to a 2000, and I am not an electrician, you know, I know some, but they just charge me money. In our, as we're transitioning our fleet, is the decision we're making here gonna give us capacity for the future? That was the second half of my question.
Yes, it surely does. And it's in answer to your question, it's kind of twofold. So it gives you the ability, we'll take for instance, with the HVAC upgrade project, they're actually adding 2 hydronic or heat pump type heaters to basically heat the maintenance bays. So at current, the floor is heated with radiant heating that's fed from a diesel. It burns diesel to basically heat water and then send it into the loop. So the new hydronic heaters that'll heat the above space, that's all electricity. That diesel burning generator that heats the water that feeds the radiant flooring at some point will have to be replaced, and it can no longer burn diesel. It will have to be an all electric heat pump. So as those systems come offline and need to be replaced, they will all have to be replaced with electrical units. So part in answer to your question is yes, it will support that future electric vehicle, or if it's hydrogen, you know, supporting some of the process to do some of the hydrogen pumping, but it also helps safeguard your future building ability to kind of upgrade and expand too. So it's a little bit of a twofold.
So I have a question based on the information you just provided, Jeff.
Yeah.
What is the useful life of our current radiant flooring? Do you
That's
know?
a question I can't answer. That would, I think it'd be a good question for others. Well, and I'll just share, Melinda. So it was installed in 2012, so it's already been operational for about 13 years now. My guess, and again, I'm not a mechanical, it probably has a 20 to 30 year useful life. So at some point in the next 5 to 7 years, you'll probably need to start to think about going to the street. Or if there are a reason that say it stopped, you know, it needed repairs and you needed permits for those repairs, the jurisdiction may say, hey, that's no longer accommodated by the energy code in Washington state. You've got to replace it with a heat pump type boiler at
Thank
that
you,
point.
Jeff. That
Yeah,
just
for sure.
set off a whole bunch of things going on in my brain. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Melanie's got a question too.
Yeah, so but this is really a question for the board, I guess, since this isn't being brought to us as part of the 2026 budget. I'm assuming this is going to be a supplemental ask to the 26-25 budget, or wasn't this project included in the 25 budget?
No, this was already approved and included on the 2025 budget. This is just work extending into 26, and I believe we're asking for the notice to proceed. Is that correct?
Okay.
Will it require a budget amendment?
No.
Oh, that's the question I heard.
What was the amount budgeted? That's what I was.
1.1 million.
So this contract amount is in line with the budgeted amount.
So just to give, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, the subject matter.
Jeff.
Jeff. So it's accurate to say, just to give some scale to the capacity increase we're purchasing through this contract, it's approximately 6, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
If we're going from 300 times up to 2,000, we're increasing our electrical capacity by 6.
Yes.
So a very substantial increase.
Yes. Yeah, and that's not to say that you're fully safeguarded about whatever future zero emissions, but this gives you a lot of capacity to work with so that you can start to implement, those building expansion projects, HVAC upgrades to some of the other buildings, and then further expand the fleet. But it's been, I'll just say, about a year and a half in the process coordinating with PSE. They had to do upstream power improvements, et cetera, to bring that power here. So really at that point, if you started later to start to get that capacity on site, then you'd be already setting yourself back a year and a half. So it's been a long coordination to get to here, but yes, it does future proof a lot. Does it future proof for everything? Probably not, but it gives you a lot of flexibility moving into the future that you don't have currently.
So I moved to authorize Island Transit to enter into a contract not to exceed $1.1 million with All Electric Inc. and Puget Sound Energy to upgrade the Cookville main base electrical transformer.
I'll second. I'm gonna take the minutes. You can-
Good.
We have a motion.
Senior lady.
We have a motion and a second to authorize to enter into a firm fixed price contract not to exceed 1.1 million with All Electric and PSC for the transformer upgrade construction project. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you, Pete Schrum. Business item number number 4, authorization to amend rideshare policy. Brad Whitler.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This morning I am bringing a motion for a potential authorization to amend our rideshare policy. Included in your board packet is the background information on our current rideshare fare policy. We are coming to the board for consideration of a policy adjustment to accommodate for recent economic events by providing a waiver of fares during the federal government shutdown. We have received requests from some vanpool groups, and in the past, Island Transit has adjusted the rideshare fare policy. Most recently, this included the Boeing strike, as well as during the COVID pandemic. Our request is limited in scope and time to only groups who are being required to work without pay and or not receiving their normal commuter benefits because of the shutdown. The time is to be for no more than 90 days. As you see in the background information, we will attempt to collect the waived fares after the shutdown is over from those groups who received the waiver. Our staff will attempt to collect these fares based on the circumstances of each group and how they pay, whether if they're self-pay or if their benefits are restored. Currently, this would impact 9 individuals for a total of $1,380 per month. We are aware that there are some other agencies, specifically Kitsap and Intercity Transit, that are already doing this. Several others are in the review process. And there was a recent story that you may or may not have seen on King 5 News about transit supporting federal employees in various agencies in the region. With that, I am open to your questions and concerns.
Are those that already have this in place doing it for 90 days?
I don't believe so. I think they've just set it for the shutdown and they haven't named a specific period.
And this would be approved, assuming that we may not get the back pay because they're not gonna be paid retroactively for this once it's over.
Correct. So if,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, I jumped in and went first. Go ahead.
I don't have a question about this. I had a question about something you said. So there are there companies that get federal benefits to pay someone's ride share? This allowance that comes to people for ride share, that comes from the federal government? Or we're just talking about federal employees that aren't paid?
Federal employees that are not paid or not receiving their benefits.
That was my question. Who would be receiving a benefit, a ride share benefit from the federal government that's not a federal employee?
No, this would be strictly for groups that are federal employees. This is not about contractors.
Okay, so but my question again wasn't related to this. It was about the fact that are there groups of people who receive these ride share benefits from the federal government?
Yes, ma'am. So there, and with the federal government and their workforce, there's a variety of labor contracts. Different programs are funded in different ways. For instance, we have one group that runs to Mount Vernon. For the VA clinic, they're still getting paid and they pay out of pocket. And so for them, this waiver would not apply. But we have other groups where they have commuter benefits that are coming through maybe a labor contract or through their department's budget. And they're no longer receiving that, and that was paying for their bandwidth. And they're also not receiving a paycheck.
Great question. Just to put it in blunt terms, this does not allow for double dipping with regard to shares.
No, sir.
Okay.
I move we approve resolution number 13-25.
Second.
Who sent me a second?
They were whispering, I didn't hear it.
We're just over here trying to behave ourselves.
We have a motion and a second to amend chapter 5 special conditions at work sites of the public ride share program and users guides retroactive as of October 1, 2025 as attached and incorporated by this reference as exhibit A effective November 17, 2025. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. There it is.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brett.
And next, we have Assistant Operations Manager Tom Hopper to talk to us about the Oak Harbor Police Department Safety Training Project update.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I've allotted my time up here.
I'm up here today to share data I'm getting from the cooperative initiative with the Oak Harbor Police Department regarding enhancing safety at select bus shelters within the city of Oak Harbor. This is our first dashboard report. Our bus shelter selection criteria. The bus shelter selection criteria was based on volume of public complaints received by Island Transit and Oak Harbor Police Department, observations and feedback from our operators and road support staff regarding recurring unsafe and inappropriate behaviors by individuals at our shelters. Based on the criteria, these 4 bus shelters were initially identified. This is the Walmart stop, the Harbor Station, Transfer Center, SARS, and Hagen bus shelters. The dashboard results are as October 25th, and I've separated them so you can see September's and October's results. Oak Harbor Police Department does random patrols throughout the day so that no known patterns are developed. It's not going to do any good if law enforcement shows up to the same shelter, same time, every same day of the week. So they are purposely not known patterns. This graph represents September's total patrols for the month over various timeframes in 2-hour blocks. As you can see, the majority of the patrols occurred between 6 a.m. and noon. From this, we can see that during September's focus patrols, there was only one incident at one shelter, and that was the Hagen bus shelter. Next graph represents October's total patrols for the month over various timeframes. What I thought was important to notice about this is that the patrol frequencies and times included out of revenue or out of service hours from midnight to 4 a.m. and 8 p.m. to midnight. And with this increase in patrols and off revenue hours, there were no incidents in October, not one. I'm very encouraged by the data, but by no means does less than 2 months provide a trend for me as far as I'm concerned. I'm very excited about how this goes forward to ensure the safety for the community, for those waiting to ride the bus and make it a more palatable platform for transportation. And of course, for my operator, my coworkers, for them to have a safer environment as well. Thank you.
I have a question, Tom.
Yeah.
Nice job. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Can we have that monthly dashboard report as part of our board packet? So
Yes.
that the board members can.
Yes, moving forward, or this one also.
It's just to track our agreement that we entered into with Oak Harbor Police. We wanted to have a dashboard report to show what's actually happening in our shelters. Because we had asked them for brief as we have.
Any other questions? Anyone online? Oh,
I simply have a comment that, with regard to safety and security at the bus shelters, appearances often have as much effect on potential riders and riders as actually if they are safe. So I always want to distinguish between people who feel safe and who are actually safe. Because it's very common for people to operate on their perception. And if there is actually a threat or a danger or a risk, that may not be reflected in their actual feelings about the matter. So that's just as a matter of record that I'm stating this.
Sure, thank you. Yes,
Did I hear correctly that the majority of the visits were between the hours of 6 a.m. and noon?
in which month?
For the month
September.
that you presented, I'm just wondering from noon to 8, if what the patrol presence is, I don't know if I heard correctly.
That's okay. I can go over that really quickly. So in September, most of the patrols were between 6 a.m. and noon. And the October, patrols were more in between, revenue hours. 4 a.m. to 8 p.m., or so midnight to 4 a.m. and 8 p.m. to midnight.
So we are seeing visits 4 to 8. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about us the afternoon.
Yeah, so point of order, I'm sorry,
And we take this off record and go, if you want to go over the presentation. 'cause
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
fine.
Yeah, thank you.
And it was a quick presentation, so let's meet after the meeting, we'll go over the stuff with you guys. Sound good?
Just as a point of order, we usually don't take audience
Yeah.
participation.
I apologize.
No, I know it's all very arcane and weird, but thank you.
Sorry. My
I
apologies.
appreciate your interest.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Business item number 2, draft number 2 of the 2026 annual budget.
Good morning, and we'll talk now our proposed 2026 budget draft 2. I want to start off by just talking a little bit about documents you received. You received a budget narrative, a capital supplemental schedule, a budget which included a summary schedule, a listing of grants, a listing of expenses by department, and more detailed numbers by department. So document you received it was about 34 pages. And the second draft has been highlighted in red and also with bullets to show any changes between draft number 1 and draft number 2. And also that we sent out a narrative yesterday to give the latest update on a single capital project. So I just wanted to make all that really clear. I'm going to approach this by, I'm just talking in a very general way about the major assumptions and how it impacts the budget. And if you have any questions, I encourage you to ask those. I'm happy to even answer the questions along the way, if that might be an easier way to do that. I will also be talking briefly about the supplemental schedule. And I know our director would like to talk in a little more depth about that, so I won't touch on those items. But I'll do that shortly after I talk about put out the assumptions on the narrative. Okay. Our first assumption that I'd like to speak on is the number of employees. In the budget, we have 163 employees in the budget. That's an increase of 5 operators for a total of 81. The breakout is 63 Whidbey and 18 Camino operators. It also shows an increase of 1 person as a staff member and a decrease of 1 supervisor. So very minimal changes except for that 5 operator increase in this budget. We also included a new position, a grant analyst. So that's our major assumption. We'll be talking about FTEs.
What was the driver for the FTE increase? What was the justification for needing 5?
I would actually prefer to defer to Brad if you'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's fine. I think this is just from the 2025 budget, correct? And it's always.
In the 2025 budget, we had set up an increase of 5 operators for 2025, and then there would be an increase in the fall. Leading into 2026 of an additional 5 operators, with the assumption that we have a long-range transit plan that was also budgeted. That would be calling for some service improvements, which would require more operators.
I think that was part of my question, is I thought we were doing the long-term strategic plan and analysis coming up.
We are.
So I'm not, we're just moving it forward because it was in there. I don't understand the justification for, like, since I've been on this board, we've restricted routes, we haven't increased routes. So I'm not understanding why we're asking for more people. I just want to know what we're using as the basis for budgeting for 5 new positions.
They're not asking for new ones. I think the way it was just portrayed, it made it sound like that. These were already approved in the 25 budget for the existing routes as they are.
So it's not, Tom clearly said that we're budgeting for 5 new positions. So if we have existing budget capacity of 5 unfilled positions? Because that's budget capacity and we just have 5 positions to fill.
So the 5 positions for 2025 were to start mid-year, and because they would only be in existence for half the year, that was the equivalent of 10 employees full-time. So there was gonna be 5 added in 2025, and the other 5 would be added to the headcount in 2026. That was the statement in last year's budget.
So this is carryover.
It's carryover,
additional.
yeah.
Then that-
Paul, can you confirm these were not new?
Is it not been budgeted capacity? Is it not already built into the employee count? If you were supposed to hire them this year, then they would have been ongoing employees, right? So wouldn't that have been built into the budget? They wouldn't be 5 new positions. They'd be 5 positions that have been hired, and the cost of those positions are carried on in perpetuity.
I think you're both right. My schedule shows FTEs. And as Brad is stating, that we budgeted those positions, but only for half the year. And so when you take those same 5 positions and account for them in a full year, it makes it look like an additional 5 FTE. But it's really, positions are stable. It's just that because we're budgeting for a full year instead of half a year on 10 employees, then it looks like an extra 5 FTE.
So just as a point of, Jill, when you put something on the budget as a person, right? Then that person is not budgeted. It's not a budget increase. Once the person comes on, they're budgeted for whether it be a half a year or whatever, but going into the next year's budget, that's a full-time position that's under normal operating. It's not new. It's not new. It is literally a continuation of the new positions were added then in 2025. And there are no new positions being added in 2026. There's an increase in the cost, but there's an increase in cost in all of our drivers, right? But we're not adding new positions. We're just funding existing budgeted positions.
Yeah, I apologize. Maybe I communicated incorrectly that they're not new positions, but it's a change in
The amount we're
total FTE, which would impact budget.
No,
But it's still 81 people. We have 81 people in 2025. We're gonna have 81 people in 2026. We only paid for half of the salary because we hired them mid-year, but it's still 81
Yeah.
FTEs.
Yeah.
So this needs to just be represented as 81 and 81 with not one up 5. Is that fair?
yeah, it's not that I have an issue with the increase in expenditure. It's that it's not an addition of 5 new employees. We're not increasing the number of FTEs. We're increasing the amount of money we're expending towards already hired FTEs or already budgeted to be hired at. But we're not getting more people.
No, it's true. There's not more physical people. You're right.
Right.
It's the cost of it will be, it's the increased cost for a full year of the FTE, so
Yeah.
it probably just needs to be represented different. I don't know what that looks like, because I don't have a map brain, but
It's not a math thing, it sounded like we were hiring additional people. I was trying to understand the justification because we hadn't done any route expansions or changes. So that's what I was trying to understand. We're not hiring any additional people right now. We're just representing an increase in the cost of having employees on books.
And really, this lands with me in not having looked at this closer. I would have thought.
oh, would it make more sense if it was 81 and 81
Yeah, no.
for both years? And then there's a footnote that 2025 only is representative of 50% of the year or whatever it is.
50% of the year.
Second half.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that makes sense, what you just said, Jenny.
I went through this whole, theoretical way of approaching this, representing this a couple of years ago where, I did look at it in terms of number of people, and then I realized that it's probably a better way to represent it based on hours. That's where I came up with that idea of equivalence.
Yeah, and I
So-
think when we look at it from a board perspective, we're looking at it as a true new FTE ask when you see the bottom line. So I, with Commissioner Johnson, that this can be misleading, because we're whole at 81, we just didn't spend on 45. Right, so whatever that was.
That's right.
And I also put in this narrative that there were currently 68 operators, which there were at the time of the celebration, but the most current data, I was told we're at 66, so I just wanted to clarify that in a second. Moving along to sales tax data, we're showing about 18.7 million. We're forecasting that our sales tax revenue will grow at 2.5%. Operating grants, we're showing 7.7 million. With the 5 grants that we currently have, equalization for transit, our 4 for 12 connectors, mobility management, and our small ride sharing incentive. Revenue and expenses, operating revenues projected to be 28.4 million. This is a 7% increase from last year's budget, and our operating expenses forecasted to be 24.2 million, a 9.82% increase from the 2025 budget. This results in about a 4.3 million operating surplus that will help offset the 12.2 million deficit. For a net decrease in reserves of about $8 million. Our next point, cash reserves, our total cash reserves budget to increase 8.6 million, 15.10% for the 2025 budget, but decrease 8 million from the 10.77% from the predicted ending actuals. So I hope everyone understands that statement. It's best to really dig in a little bit and look at this, the summary. You'll notice that the 2025 budget is showing an ending 57 million in reserves. The 2025 actuals 74 million in reserves. So we're landing at 66 is between those two amounts, and so the one shows the increase, the other is decrease. I hope everybody looks at that and can understand it. If not, I'm happy to answer any other question about that. Medical and dental coverage. Proposed medical plan is to continue our existing options. We have a 3,000 deductible Kaiser plan, in which most of our employees participate. And we also have a Kaiser PPO 500 deductible plan. The average rate for those two medical plans will increase 11.75%. Delta dental rates will increase 5.55%. Now it's under capital items, and I'd like to defer to our director to speak on a couple of important items.
I think, we have developed a new sheet to look at, which is this graph of the supplemental addendum capital expense. And if I can direct your attention to that, this is a very succinct way of describing capital projects of what is new, what is preservation and replacement, and what is carryover that was already approved in 2025. I think it'll be a little bit more digestible than the narrative in the budget highlights. So between draft one and draft two, I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple of the changes. If we start out up top with the automated bus passenger counts, there's been a change from draft one and two. The APCs were originally, we had a placeholder of 1 million. We have received approximately 5 proposals, and the average cost has been reduced from 1 million to 500,000. So that was very positive. We have not yet scored those and went through that process, but we no longer need to use the $1 million placeholders. So really happy to see that. The next item, we have the flashing light that signal out here on the highway between Ryan's house. We talked about the 26,000 last month. I did get in the 1,000 as a maintenance and operating cost on an annual basis, should something go wrong with the equipment. So that's worst case scenario. The next item is the external, well, let's see, I'm sorry, I'm gonna jump over here. Special note on the bus driver safety barriers. Last month we discussed it's 140,000. That was retrofits for only 8 buses. We had a discussion during that board meeting about the appropriateness of perhaps going out for an RFP, which lends a much better pricing. And so as your director, I would like to request or recommend that we do an RFP process in 2026 that can be included in our 2027 budget versus allocating 140 for ready-made that may not suit our purposes. Thoughts?
Comment.
Yes.
If we're gonna do a procurement on bus safety barriers and the audit finding, we need to just make sure it fits that procurement policy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would be the RFP cost versus the expenditure cost?
What we looked at, for example, CT went out on an RFP for these safety barriers. And because they had 332 vehicles, their average cost was about 8,700, where ours ended up being about 14,000 per. And it also doesn't allow for the input of operators and maintenance and all of those factors that could go into an RFP to make sure we're getting what we really like to have.
So that capital request would just get removed from 2026?
Correct.
But is there any cost that needs to get put
For the
back in?
RFP?
Yeah.
No, because I now have a procurement manager,
Okay.
so we'd be able to go out and see what that's about, and then we'd include it for.
We might also look at piggyback opportunities, because
Yes.
that's kind of an industry-wide issue that the industry.
Yes, absolutely, and I do have CT's contract, we wanted to include our operators and maintenance in the development process, but yeah. Okay, so moving right along, the security patch panel was a change from 15,000 to 50. I'm gonna have our new IT manager, Chris, speak on this in a moment. But what I want to point out is in his short time with us, which is what, 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. He did a complete evaluation of the system and the locations, of which there are 3.
3 main locations.
3 main locations, with our vendor, and reflected that an increase in the budget for this item to ensure the new cameras are up to standard. Can you speak a little bit about that,
yes.
Chris?
So as we're getting cameras installed this year, we're finding some of the cameras are hardwired with copper, and they are very long length. So in reviewing cameras that weren't coming up and what issues we have with those cameras, the biggest identifier was this location. We have 7 poles out in the parking lot that exceed 320 feet, which is the longest length you should go for copper. And we're going to go out for an RFP or an RFQ to install fiber to those poles. So I've already identified which poles and where they go. The idea is to future-proof this for about 20 to 30 years at least. Using fiber, we can increase the bandwidth. We can also add Wi-Fi to the poles that we have out there now. The Wi-Fi is not working, cameras are not working. So
So just to, as a refresher, thank you, Chris. As a refresher, we purchased a camera system for the exterior parking lots last year. And unfortunately, there were some items not included in that in our previous IT purchase to make them really workable for us. So we had put 15,000 as a placeholder for upgrades that were needed to make them work properly. And then Chris has done that in the last 3 weeks to get us a better number on what it would really take to bring it up to par. Okay, then I guess you can keep standing because we have one more. So that was for new improvements. Down in our carryover improvements for computer equipment, we had, and let's see, computer equipment carryover expansion. The data storage that we originally had budgeted was for 175,000. We can reallocate that as an item that is not needed to a whole network upgrade for 152. That nets us $23,000 in savings. So Chris, can you speak to that?
A couple of the findings that were from Moss Adams, and there's 2 reports that date back to 2018, is called network segmentation. And there is no network segmentation currently. So the network itself has a hodgepodge of 4 different vendor products. I want to unify all of that together in one product or vendor, so that we can have firewall, Wi-Fi, network segmentation, switch network, all of that in one uniform platform instead of the 4 or 5 that we have now. Brings that all together. The storage array was based, I'm not quite sure, it seems like it was based off of the old virtual desktop infrastructure that we had that we have removed this year. So over 2026, I'm going to, for disaster recovery, which will be a 2027 project, evaluate how much storage we truly actually need. And I'm pretty sure we did not need $175,000 storage. So that was easily allocated to a much higher priority, which is network segmentation, which is the core of everything that we would have for technology.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
A good strategy.
Thank you. Okay, Paul, I don't know if we want to go into the preservation and replacement. We have quite a bit of red in there.
I do want to make one comment. As I was reading the packet, I came to this page, went through it, had a bunch of notes and questions, and then turned the page, and these little draft yellow pop-outs answered almost every question I had. So this is really,
Right, this is
really
great
useful.
format. Good, good. We've been, staff have been through a lot. We've had each week 2 to 3 hour workshops on budget. So we've been working hard to make things plain. So do we want to address the preservation and replacement? I think the first one that I'm going to have Pete talk about, as you recall, in our earlier part of the meeting, is on this sheet, we show a fuel building, 4 high-speed rolling doors for the bus wash at 160,000. This is a safety feature. As you're aware, we, in the earlier part of our agenda, we had the contractor remove the heaters for the bus wash due to safety. So these doors, are put in to prevent a cold wind tunnel. Pete, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, the added for the fuel building, it's gonna fire contamination and prevention. This will reduce the risk of fire spreading and to adjacent structures. The weather, when they come in, sometimes there's about 2 feet of snow inside, snow drifts, and it makes it very slippery and wet in there. Very bad slip hazard inside the fuel building. These new doors, we've been thinking about putting doors on that building for some time. The technology allows us now, these doors open and close within 3 seconds. They're very fast and there's sensors on them to stop coming down, so.
So if I'm standing there, it's not gonna.
No,
When I heard 3 seconds, I'm like, oh,
I
it's
know,
the
me too.
safety.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, and then the wind is very bad through there. We have 50-mile-an-hour winds coming through there. Things flying around, puts the crew at risk.
So, so the difference here, the reason it's in red, it was not included on the first draft budget, although we talked about it. It didn't get into the draft, so my apologies for that. It's been included in the second draft. Do we have any questions or concerns? Okay, great. HVAC, is this the change order amount, Pete, the 749,958 for the sales tax amount? So,
Yes. This
okay,
sense on.
okay.
Make or break.
All right, so, also in red are 3 small buses, 8 vehicles, I believe, this is just removing the 12 hybrids. Michael, can you address the change, why we did the change here?
This actually is to encompass the, green transportation grant, I was informed that we received, after draft one had come out. And so this is to encompass, some replacement vehicles that, are obviously, as you folks well know, very needed. It would require a scope change to a grant, but, it would bring us in line with our TDP and, help bring fleet up to date.
Thank you. And Michael has worked diligently. He does our TAM plan. We included a vehicle replacement schedule that shows you, he's got a legend there on the side. It shows what the useful life benchmarks are, not only for the agency, but for FTA, but also shows you what vehicles are up for replacement, what grant numbers they're tied to for replacement. So we utilize this and the grantors utilize this. When we ask for replacement vehicles, we have to prove that they are in fact eligible for replacement. So I thought this was a useful tool for you all to refer to when we're asking for more vehicles, whether they're expansion or replacement. You can see what we currently have, where it's at in mileage and all those good things.
Do we do replacements based on age or?
It can be either one. So, that, when I say that, that is the federal requirement, so they won't allow you to replace it unless one or the other has been met.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah.
It's not like one of those standards where you have to do one process by, say, mileage all the time, or one process
No.
by age.
Yeah. And once an agency, the reason there's an agency useful life, just as an explanation of a TAM plan, is many agencies in the region, even though you can replace a vehicle at 12 years with federal money if it's reached the mileage or the years. Most agencies or many agencies say we'll have a 15-year useful life because they've been doing preventive maintenance. They've been taking care of the equipment. And it takes 18 months to get those vehicles, so many times they have to retain them for that period, but doesn't mean they're not eligible.
Just answered one of my questions I was gonna ask you after Michael, you just answered it.
Okay.
Let's see, I'm gonna let, other people talk about lawnmowers and printers. See what those changes are. Lawnmower would be facilities?
Yeah, we're replacing the lawnmower. The one we presently have is 20 years old. And a lot of PM maintenance is starting to cost, so like this be the.
Is that red because we just moved it from a department, Paul? And I mean, Pete, stand up.
I was gonna
say. Sorry about
The
that.
reason why it's red is there's some clarification and a change from a previous language. So I just wanted to.
Paul's working diligently to make sure you guys can see the changes.
Sure
from draft to draft.
change.
Yeah,
It's
Thank
good.
you.
Paul.
It is.
yeah, very good.
Not my head, your one.
And so the same with the printers, it looks like that was, from Department 101. The, conservation easement on the tree farm, they added 5,000 for the administrative processing costs. That's all I got. Paul, back to you.
Okay. Well, as Councilman Seer was saying, the layout on this, these major assumptions shows on the very final page, all the small changes that were made between these two drafts. I'm just gonna touch on a few that I think are really material. And I'll leave it to you to look at the other changes at your leisure. What was significant for me was really seeing the removal of our 12 large buses from this budget, because they're really gonna fall within the 2027 year when they arrive and we pay.
Year of expenditure.
Well, the year of our payment as well.
So the revenue arrives, is the revenue, current revenue for those 12 buses in our fund balance, or the revenue arrives concurrent with the expenditure?
We have the funding. It's not drawn down until you actually pay for the vehicles, and then the grants are on a road.
So we have been awarded the funding, but, yeah, okay, that's my question.
Yeah.
I think the buses are slated to come in at the very earliest in late 2026 to be paid in 27. And of course, our budget is really on a cash basis, and that's when the money will move in. So they're included in that year. So we took it out of the 2026 budget for that reason. They're slated to arrive maybe in December of 2026, so we expected for it probably at least a couple weeks. And then make an application for payment, which would probably arrive another 2 months later.
We have included it in 26, and we're not gonna be paying for it.
But you held the funding, so we pay up front, right?
No,
Yes.
oh, no, we do pay when after they arrive. And they're inspected and approved. We'll receive an invoice, we'll pay that.
But at the time that we order, we set aside the amount of money that we need to pay out, correct?
Yes.
The money, there is money set aside for that, but it's not necessarily put in the budget if we're planning to expend it in the next year.
There's a PO that is cut, that is entered into the grant agreement so that they know we
Have
are
the money if we're good
obligating
for it.
us.
Right, cause if you ran, I hear what you're saying, but if you ran out of money at the end of 2026. You still committed to buy the buses when you ordered them.
Correct.
So what I was just thinking is I understand like the cash part of it, real cash, but the promise to pay is at the time that you order. And so at the time of promise to pay, it seems like that money needs to be represented somewhere, because whether we are approving 2027 or not, we've already promised away that money in 2026.
We've talked about that, about having a forecast model that trends out, but those expenditures are in the future.
Which is your TDP.
Yeah, so I think we just have to have,
I mean,
because I agree with you.
Yeah, because it seems like it's just easy to like earmark it in fund balance. You know, just say this money is sitting here for this purpose, and then it goes over to the cash side when you spend it. I get that part. But from a mental budgeting process, some of that money that's held in the bank is spent already. So
So, Paul, on the TDP, under the capital expenditures, when we're forecasting like that, aren't you reducing the capital reserve by that amount?
Yeah, that is happening, and I think on the TDP, we actually include those plus
Okay,
purchases
we
in
do, we
2026.
do.
Okay,
But, like I said,
But it's
assumption
on
shifted
paper.
a little bit.
right, but so like on this, it's like the projected saving, it's reducing the projected savings, right?
There are two components to this, one is a in 2026, a reduced expenditure for approximately, I think it was 14 million. And then there's the reduced revenue from the grant that we were also counting on in this budget. So both were removed from this budget. Just with the recognition that that process will happen in 2027.
I'm not gonna care, I would care more if our fund balance was tight, but I've done this before where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pay that bill, but then the month comes afterwards. And I still owe the money to the Nordstrom, but I've run out of money in my checking account to pay them. I see the
Nordstrom's
problem.
always the example she uses.
It's always the problem in my household. So, I mean, that's just, it's like we're charging, and I just wanna make sure we have money in the bank to pay the bill. It's a charge.
I can assure you we have money in the bank.
Yeah, we do, right. I'm not gonna panic.
Is it helpful to the board to have, when we have our final cash balance, to your point, where we have a budget note that talks about what's obligated out of that fund balance, so we have a very clear idea of what's been obligated by the board that impacts that. We don't have a proper fund balance, to both their points, but it's an interesting budget note to think about. This is how much we've obligated, but it's not showing yet.
Right, I think that's a really good.
I support that as well, the note piece and the cash, very useful for clarifying.
Help us track our thinking.
Right,
And
but then the money comes back in 2027, because we're
Yeah.
getting reimbursed. I hear it, and we have enough money, that's not a thing, it's more of a mental, we made a promise to spend this much thing, and how do we, the board keep track of where we promised away money? Because our friends at the federal government are doing really well at making promises, not so well at keeping them. So whether or not this reimbursement comes back
I will
depends on
say,
the mood of the day.
right, and I will say that our assurance, as we are a subrecipient of WashDOT, they have gotten the obligation from the federal government to let us go, so we hold WashDOT account.
Oh, okay, so we've got another safety net.
Correct, correct.
The other reason why I think this is a good point that got raised is boards change, and so to have those budget notes.
Yes.
Enables a future board member that comes in to see what the past legislative intent was in obligating funds, so they can track the process and the thought process as perhaps leadership changes at our level and even at the staff level.
There was one other change. Paul, was there anything?
There was just one other item I was gonna mention outside of the 12 large hybrids was the next line on that supplemental where we went from 11, I believe, to 3 small buses for a reduction of about $2 million. So I just wanted to call it to your attention because it was a large item.
What was the reason for that? Which is what happens when I miss me.
I'll defer to our maintenance group. That was to encompass that rate.
But do we need the 11 buses?
We still need the 11 buses, but rather than purchasing them all from capital, we're gonna use the grant to encompass 8 of them.
Oh, I got
And
it.
then 3 would be capital.
Okay, I understand, sorry.
So I'd like to revisit just for a moment, going back to Paul's narrative when we talked about one new position. I had mentioned to all of you on our one-on-ones about this position, but previous to this, I wasn't gonna add anything for 2026. And after reconsideration and looking at the Clark Nuber report and also meeting with SAO, they talked about our grant compliance. And as you know, that's my background. I'm requesting 1 FTE, a new grant analyst / administrator, which will centralize, just like procurement, our grants process. So I'm looking for someone that does cradle to grave oversight of grants and allowable expenditures. We're kind of sitting in the same situation as we were with procurement, where we have a wonderful grant writer, Meg, who brings all the money in. Then it gets dispersed out, whether it's vehicles or projects. But you don't have anyone managing that process on a month-to-month, ensuring that timelines are being met, ensuring that projects are on target and on time, ensuring we're at budget, also reviewing allowable expenditures. We also have our finance person doing narrative reporting. And so I'm restructuring this to, instead of adding a grant manager, I'm looking for a non-exempt 12 position, which is a lower grade. And then that person will report to our new accountant, who then will do the financial aspects. Yes, Janet.
So that's the one staff position that's in our major assumptions.
Yes.
And you're calling it a grant analyst, but as you've talked about it with me, both now and in the past, you've talked about it as a grants compliance and analyst.
That's, yeah.
And so,
It includes.
client's title is important to me and his job title is in an audit, we can say, look, we added somebody doing
Absolutely.
compliance.
Yes, and
So
it
I'd
is
like that in the
supported.
grant,
Yes,
in the
and
job title.
it absolutely will be. And it is definitely supported by Clark Newber. That was a big part of my position at Everett Transit, so I can bring that information over. So
In this column, you're down one. Can that position be moved over? In the
which
grid,
one is it?
in the grid, you got this in the supervisor, you're a negative one. I don't know what the level is or what that means.
I
but
believe we have an open supervisor position that I'd like to.
that should not be negative.
Did you get that?
Once again, I we looked at, I looked at it pretty closely and there has been a lot of movement in the positions.
Okay.
And some changes in the description. But I just do my best to try and fit it in those categories.
Yeah, and I just, to Commissioner Johnson's earlier point, when I look at that supervisor column and it's a decrease. But if we intend to backfill that position, then it's a,
I should say that the grant analyst position is included in this budget.
no, what I meant is in the supervisor column, we're down a negative. Is that, are we intending to backfill whatever? Cause we were at 20 and now we're at 19 going into 2026. Are we
I'm not
intending to
sure I can
backfill?
answer that.
I believe that's an operating supervisor position that belongs to operations
Okay.
that we would be backfilling.
Okay,
So,
then,
yeah.
I just wanna,
We
this
did
grid's a
that
little
for it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
Quick question. With regard to this, grants position,
Yes.
in recent history, we, at the municipal level, were declined all of our grant requests because and I think the litmus test was the packages weren't perfect, they weren't prepared in advance, they were not ahead of everybody else. So this particular grants analyst, would that, favor our positioning as far as getting things done? In advance,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely. And just to Meg's credit, we have done a phenomenal job of meeting guidelines, but I see this individual, when we talk about cradle to grave, yes, it's about the applications. We have pretty set timelines with WashDOT. We know when those grant cycles are. But there's other competitive grants that come out that also would be applied for.
Alright, but the practical truth is that there's a relationship piece even with regard to competing for scarce resources. So that
Correct.
if you have the contacts and you're
Correct.
rolling the stuff in advance,
Correct.
because it is competitive.
That individual would be continually building those relationships with our funders, just like I have from my previous and have been able to call in a lot of favors. So that definitely helps.
Thank you, alright, good.
So, I have a very specific question on page 3 of 31. Line 70, or I guess it's budget line item 70301. Our actuals in the fuel in 2024 and 2025. Average around $900,000. And yet, and I mentioned this last month. This year, we are budgeting for a 30% increase in fuel consumption. How is that possible?
Can you speak to that, Michael?
Sure, we have 9 additional vehicles that were added to the fleet this year. That was 2 separate grants that brought them in.
We're expansion.
They were expansion. We also are, hopefully anticipating our 2 new Gilligs, which would be expansion as well.
So I get the fact they're expansion, but are they replacing buses?
No, expansion is the opposite of replacement.
They're
Replacement is a one-on-one, expansion is adding more vehicles.
So okay, then I have a major disconnect here. Are we increasing our routes? How are these buses gonna be used if we are retaining the buses that are currently running routes?
So I can speak to this to the best of my ability. Both these purchases were started before my taking over. The 2 Gillig expansions, I don't really have a response for you as far as what their purpose was, addition of routes, anything of that nature. I can tell you that the para buses that we had ordered, the 9 expansion, they are very, very needed. There was quite a while where we had added some usage of para, I want to say, if my memory serves me correctly, especially as we kind of cycled into on-demand and changing of what the structure looked like, where there was no addition to the vehicle fleet. So we've been running in a deficit for quite a while.
And then you have no spare vehicles.
Yes, we have 11 para routes, and we have 13 buses on Whitby, so we have been running at a pretty serious deficit with the factory and maintenance, accidents.
Okay,
Good question.
So on your spreadsheet, when you're talking, so I'm learning to read the spreadsheet, so I track. On your spreadsheet, are these the buses 11 and 12? Because those are the 2 Gillig low floor that you've ordered on a specific grant item. They're the only ones that are coming in 2s. Michael, you don't have to answer that. School me later on how to match our tracking document to the conversations we have in this room.
Okay, can I catch up with you offline?
Absolutely. What I had wanted to see this was our ability to then track our inventory sheets with what we say in the room. And so as you say that, I'm saying 2 vehicles, 2 paras, and my brain goes there. We don't have to do it now. I just want, and I'm sure the other board members want to be able to know how we track as we get our additional tools for transparency and track how we can put it together.
I'll go ahead and answer that one right now. To be frank with you, the 2 Gilligs are not on here yet because we have not received them, and as
And
agency
this
have
is
not
the current
accepted them.
inventory.
This is current inventory.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And if they go to our parafleet, which been having some challenges, if that's where we end up assigning them for usage, then that makes a lot of sense to me, because that's the fleet where we least want to have maintenance failures.
Okay, well, I don't have anything else that I want to talk about. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to do more questions. I'm happy to answer that, but otherwise,
Can I do that, one? So the budget is then reducing our fund balance, our reserves by $8 million.
about, yes,
So we're having a spend down of that.
that's right.
Okay.
Reduction.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we approving the budget today, or do we just?
No, in December.
Okay,
We'll be bringing you the wage grid and all that good stuff.
okay.
Okay, just a point of order, I am stepping out and the vice chair is taking over for the rest of the meeting.
Thank
I'll do that.
Melinda, are we anticipating any further changes to the budget? Are we expecting a draft 3 to be approved?
We are expecting a final draft 3, yes, plus the addition of the wage grid
Okay.
for non-exempt.
So, we are moving into monthly reports, no more items for action, and we begin with Melinda's executive director's report.
Okay,
And I'm sure the board will appreciate that everyone doing reports do them as fully and efficiently as possible.
yes, and I just want to thank
You have it
everybody
in
for
writing.
all the, additional time today. I want to focus mine on my 2 new additions to our team. We have 2 new employees, Chris Chidley and Vanya Brown. Chris is our new IT manager. He comes to Island Transit with more than 10 years of experience in transportation and multiple years in information systems. He is a people leader, team collaborator, and came to us highly recommended by industry experts. Chris previously held the IT director's position at Skagit Transit, where he came on board during an electronic breach around 2012. He led the charge by developing a disaster recovery plan to ensure Skagit Transit's data would be protected, and led to many more technological implementations. Leaders at Wistic followed Chris for 3 years during this time and witnessed his expertise in bringing them through the crisis. He's forward-thinking, flexible, and will bring Island Transit's technology up to speed as well as working toward meeting future demands. So we're fortunate to have you and we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
And that is followed by Vanya, who is our newest addition to the finance team as our new accountant. A few responsibilities includes the oversight of payroll, payables, and grants. In addition, she will also support our financial controller on a variety of tasks. In 2026, Vanya will work closely with the new grant analyst to centralize and streamline grant processing. She comes to us with over 15 years of accounting experience and 8 years of supervision and possesses an MBA from Columbia College. Vanya is experienced both in the private and public accounting sector, including 8 years of experience with Island County's Public Health Department. We're excited to bring Vanya onto the team as we restructure finance, grants, and inventory. Welcome. You can read the rest of mine unless someone has a particular question on my report.
I do. It would be useful, I think, in next month's report to have an org chart for the agency,
Yes,
since we're
we can do
adding
that.
positions.
Certainly.
I'd
Yeah.
just like to see that, yeah.
We'll do that as part of the budget. Yeah. We're working on
So
that.
Melinda,
Yes.
I'm delighted whenever we can hire it the way talent's on schedules, so.
Oh.
I thought you were gonna say Island County and I was about.
I thought he was too, and I was gonna say, don't say that.
Don't go there.
You're right.
Yes, I am as well. We are very lucky to have Chris.
We know you're lucky to have Vanya, but we're not talking about it right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, she was somewhere else. She hasn't been there for 8 years.
It doesn't matter.
Oh.
Once, okay, you want
Dang
like
it,
to
good
read that. All right,
matter.
parents, do you wanna go forward with your human resources? Go ahead up there.
Morning, everybody. We're holding pretty steady. We're at 53 over the 16 on Camano. We did have 4 operators graduate yesterday, all 4 passed their CDLs.
Wow.
So they'll be coming on board, and we have another 4 starting, training, I believe, on the 17th.
There you go.
I've noticed the buses in training circling. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, it says in the.
Yes, in training.
Yeah, I've noticed.
So as you can see, we're holding pretty steady on the operators. We did lose 2 individuals this month, which brings our count down a little bit, but overall, we're holding pretty steady. People seem to be happy. We're progressing.
Continue to recruit.
What was the reason for the departure?
If any questions about those, you guys could talk to Melinda offline.
Yeah.
Not pay,
Pardon me.
not pay.
No, no,
That's all I want to know.
not pay or food.
I told them they could discuss reasons.
Thank
for
you,
termination.
Tara.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate just having this quick check-in on staffing. Sure. With the Iglers. It's tremendously comforting.
I just feel today like all of the hard work that we've done as a board to increase transparency and accountability over the last year or more is bearing fruit in just how the reports are coming. And they're becoming part of our marrow or our muscle memory and how we operate.
Agreed.
Just for the good of the order, as the new guy here, relatively new
You
still.
don't get to say that, right?
I know, but the reality is I'm delighted to be able to be on the board when we're really at sort of a sweet spot or a Goldilocks place.
Don't take that.
Okay,
Don't jinx it.
are you just throwing water on my talent? Okay.
It's fine.
Did you just stay?
With this organization, like many organizations, it's been through its ups and downs. You may be there a long time, so you may see another one of those. Paul, are you ready to go?
All right, I'll make this as quick as I can. I just wanted to add a little bit to that discussion about management items and just give you my take on what they were saying, for a little more clarity. The first item was about the cash flow statement that you were asking questions about. And the presentation, which I've been using since it started, about 11 years, has been the same. This year, they don't like it. So basically, it takes the accrual numbers and through reconciling adjustments, gets to a change in cash. And that's what's represented on the statement. It's a two-part report or a cash flow statement, and I think what you're gonna see next year, I'm gonna work with the auditors to change the format, but what you're gonna see is a one-page statement. So there will be a change in the format, and we're happy to
Yeah,
present it the way they
I was trying to get at, did the rules change? Cause I didn't think they had. Or did the instructions from GASB as they updated change the way we have to report it? Or did their preference change? And what you're telling me is their preference changed in how they wanted to see the numbers. And I go, okay, well, in an audit, they're kind of the boss, but I have a different feeling about it as a board member.
The second item was, they were talking about GASB 100 and 101. 101 is regarding compensated absences and the rules surrounding that.
I saw that.
100 is the changes and how they're documented or notated in the report. I did use a different method than their standard. Of course, they didn't really articulate that standard. We did the research. We asked questions. We watched their presentations. I calculated payouts, you might say, based on the history of each individual in the organization. They prefer to see it is a history of the last year or two for the group. So there were differences, and they wanted to see it their way, which we will do next year. And then anytime a change should have been made, then a change in should be represented. So the change wasn't made, and the representation of that change wasn't made. But both of those items could have been corrected during the audit. They advised that we not make those changes for the sake of saving money and time. And then we'll incorporate those changes in next year's documents. So
We've been working with Moss Adams, and I was trying to understand all this stuff, because that's why I asked those questions. But there was a clarifying memo from Moss Adams on GASB 101. And my feeling is we do what the experts tell us to do. Whatever that is.
And it's a new standard. There wasn't a lot of direction on how to estimate those payouts. So I just used the most detailed method that I could tell.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, I'll run through the September finance report. Our cash sources, you can see we didn't bill any contract revenue, we didn't receive any capital grant revenue. Our sales tax revenue is up by 66,000 versus the prior year, almost 11%. So we're still on a good course there. Next slide, please.
How much capital grant funding do you expect in the next, or do we have large capital grants we're expecting?
Yeah, I would expect, I think we're gonna be reimbursing by 5-6 months. Basically, this isn't anything that's unusual, because if our contracts aren't signed by a certain time, we wait until that happens, because not only do we have to earn that money, it has to be approved by WISDOT with signature before it can be counted.
Were you asking about an amount?
I'm just in general, how much can we expect arriving at Island Transit in the next 5 or 6 months?
I really hesitate with a number, but I think, maybe.
It's based on a reimbursement basis. What we can do is outline the grants that were awarded on a 2-year biennium, and then let you know.
Okay.
What we're looking to reimburse.
That's right.
No, but this really is a good standard of, one of the reasons I want a grants person is we take a look at a biennium and a grant, and then we're gonna allocate over 8 quarters, what we're gonna get in reimbursements, so that I want them to do it quarterly. We're gonna be changing process so that you can not only determine revenue, but also those reimbursements as they go out.
You know, I can tell you that just in this last week, we've had a flurry of contracts gone through with, you know, Wistads distributing.
Yeah.
Their work, and so we are subject to the, quickly they can churn those out.
Yeah, he's saying we haven't done any reimbursements because we just got the signed contract.
Yeah. So graphically, it wasn't, yeah, I showed this every month, but you can see the widening between the blue and the pink. Blue's actual budgeted is pink. And, the green line is the percentage of over what we budgeted, and you can see we've been in that good range for a number of months here, so that's good news. We went, I think at the beginning of the year, we were at a negative position on an annual basis. Now we're at almost 3% above what we had budgeted. That also is great news for the organizations. Next slide, please. Nothing significant in either miscellaneous or contract revenue. Interest rates, the green line, which is where we're invested in the ICTIP, is taking an upturn, and that is favorable to the organization. We all know that interest rates have been slowly declining. LGIP is affected also by the Fed funds rate. You can see it's slowly decreasing, but our ICTIP, taking a little longer term locked in position, is now on the rise. So we're going to benefit from it. Cash uses, 2 significant areas. We have payroll and non-payroll, or what we call AP. Just on an accrual basis, payroll expense is up about 27,000, 2.5%. We had a little longer month, and some of this increase is reflected in our holiday pay, and we also noticed that our paid time off is up about $6,000. Non-payroll, we had a huge decrease, so about 80%, a little over $1 million. Last month, we paid for Shepke buses, and this month we have not. So it was the main source of those changes, and there were no fees in September. Capital payments, one of our finance committee members brought up that Passio software is a technology, will be incorporating technology leases. So they're kind of a similar item, but you can see our Passio software is about $100,000 in September, and we have some other items, transformer work done, a little bit like 2 computer tablets, and a little work on tiers. Cash reserves, September cash increased about almost $600,000, and we're sitting a little under 74 million in reserves. Slide, please. And you can see this graphically, a little uptick in the total line. I attributed a lot to just low non-payroll outlays. Like I said, we did purchase buses or pay for buses in September, like we did in the previous month. Next slide, please. Budget actual, our target for 3/4 of the way through the month, and it's our target 75%. Sales tax, interest and revenue exceeded our budget goal, and our sales tax gate ended on almost 3% better than expected, which I already stated. So you can see our target was 75%. There were only a couple of items that exceeded that budget sales tax. On the expense side, again, same target, and of course, our prepaid insurance is ahead, but we're well below a lot of categories and pretty much on pace with our wages, tax, and benefits at 68%.
Commissioner,
We have a
and
question.
Claire has a question.
Well, just when you're done, to Craig, your question, it's gonna be interesting to track the trends on fuel. Because here we're well below what we budgeted for this year in fuel expenses. And yet we budgeted 30% increase because of the new vehicle, so it'll be interesting to see how big we are in that projection going forward.
Yeah, I can't add, I didn't state it before, is that I usually will estimate fuel a little bit higher than what the average payout was, with the idea that, you know, fuel could spike. And so just trying to.
Right.
Put a little bit more in there than you would maybe see spent in the previous year.
A buffer. Do you think do the fuel prices today, are they lower than what you anticipated?
I think so. I think fuel has been down a little bit. I mean, you wouldn't know that by going back about South of the, but I think your national fuel bills have, or costs have decreased. You know, you look around the country, but you know, we also have a tax in addition to the cost of fuel. And, you know, I'm also looking at wholesale prices that are coming through, like when we're pumping at wholesale prices. So, yeah, there's a buffer built in here, in addition to what we're seeing at the actual net. Okay. That's it.
Again. Thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul?
Is there a question?
No. Thank you.
This meeting was huge.
It was huge. It was. I said that when you met with us. Any other business from the board or staff? Or anything? Do we have any veterans in the room? Want to honor you today?
All these guys.
We want to honor your service and thank you. Board board member comments. Okay, it's 12:15. With that, we adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody.